How's it going, everyone? Welcome to ScoreBoard Talk. ScoreBoard Talk is a sports podcast by fans for fans. We'll talk college football and basketball, NBA, NFL, and MLB, plus discuss the week's top stories and more right here on ScoreBoard Talk. How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to ScoreBoard Talk, the sports podcast by fans for fans. I'm your host, Brian Hall. And a bit of a disclaimer here before we get into today's episode. I want to apologize to the city of Cleveland because I got the Browns record wrong. And I know that's my bad on my end. I did not have correct information. It was, I said they went 6-7-1, but they actually went 7-8-1, almost had a wild card spot. So I apologize to the Browns and the city of Cleveland. On today's episode, we're going to talk Zion Williamson. He injured his knee after blowing out his shoe against UNC. It was really crazy to see, what this means for Duke moving forward and Zion. We're going to talk about Jim Boeheim, a very tragic situation happened in Syracuse. The Bengals finally hire a defensive coordinator, what that means for Cincinnati, and the Lakers playoffs. They came back from down 19 to beat the Rockets, and we'll wrap that up in today's episode. But first, we're going to talk about Duke and Zion Williamson. Really tough moment for Zion, and 36 seconds into it, he came over at the top of the arc, and I think he went to cut, and he slipped, blew through his shoe and hurt his right knee. He blew his shoe through his left ankle, and a lot of people thought, oh, no, maybe it's the ankle. But he actually injured his right knee. Coach K said it was a mild knee sprain, and yesterday, even though ESPN, it felt like every 15 seconds, what's going on with Zion? And so they really shoved the Duke agenda down everybody's throats. But Zion goes down. What this means for Duke after watching that game on Wednesday, it's kind of weird how Carolina, they just came in and they were the aggressor early. Obviously, Zion not playing in the game is big, but play a little devil's advocate here. If you're Duke, you have two other first-round draft picks. You have a very good point guard in Trey Jones. They are getting hurt by their bench. Jack White has missed 25 straight threes. Luke May for North Carolina, he had a big night, 30 points. Cam Johnson had 26 points, and Cam Reddish and RJ Barrett 33 points, Reddish 27 points. North Carolina did a great job on Trey Jones, 1 for 11, 1 for 6 from the three. He only had 3 points. So they were really able to keep Duke in check. I think for Zion, a lot of people have been calling for this week for him to shut it down and just go straight for the NBA and secure that first round draft pick money. So we'll see what happens. But I was really kind of surprised how just defeated Duke looked. And losing a teammate during a game, it's tough, but there's so much talent on that team, and Coach K is arguably the greatest college basketball coach. You could even say greatest basketball coach ever, and they could not get it done. Our next topic here, Jim Boeheim. He was heading home from the game Wednesday night as they defeated Louisville, and coming back on 690 Interstate, there was some bad weather, and he struck and killed a pedestrian with his vehicle. Boeheim then went straight to the police station. No drugs or alcohol in his system, no drugs or alcohol in his car. He was going the speed limit, and as the reports say that the victim, Jorge Jimenez, 51-year-old man, they were in a vehicle traveling on the interstate when he was a passenger, actually, and the vehicle slid and hit a guardrail and came out into the middle of the road when Boeheim came around. He tried to avoid the vehicle and did not see Jimenez as they all exited the vehicle, and he unfortunately struck him. He's passing. And just a really tragic situation. The investigation is active and ongoing, so I'm not really sure at this point. But, thoughts and prayers go out to the family of those affected, and also, Coach Boeheim. It just seems like a very just tragic situation for the head coach. The Bengals hire a defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo. He's going to be the head honcho for the Bengals defense. And I mean, the Bengals defense, the defense hasn't been the same since Mike Zimmer left. And if we're going to talk about the Bengals here, the Bengals, I don't know why my voice has just been cracking so much lately. I don't know if it's dry, but I feel like I'm going through puberty all over again. So forgive me for sounding like a squeaker. But the Bengals defense, I don't think hasn't been not that I think the Bengals defense hasn't been the same since Mike Zimmer became the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. At the time that Zimmer wanted to be a head coach, I should say, the Bengals stayed with Marvin Lewis. And for those who are wondering, I don't hate Marvin. I think some of the issues for the Bengals was owner being the GM. I mean, there's been numerous of people who tried to take the Bengals away from Mike Brown, and he tries to run it like his dad, and he's not really a football guy. And so just some of the higher up moves has been difficult for Cincinnati. But I did think when he wanted to become a head coach that Marvin could have retired or moved to the front office and then put Mike Zimmer as the head coach. I mean, if you look at the Vikings, they didn't have a stellar year last year. They had an incredible year the year before. I mean, they just built a very good roster, a very good defense, and if Cincinnati would have kept on to Zimmer, we wouldn't be having the defensive problems that we've been having. As the line injuries have just depleted the Bengals the last couple of years, the linebacking core has been very knocked down, I should say. And then there's Vontaze Burfict. Love him or hate him. I think the Bengals should try to move on from him. I believe last year he was fighting a trainer coming out of the game. He got another concussion, and just his play style has taken, I would say, years off of his career. But I think I'm ready as a fan to move on. There's been some great moments. He's a good football player, just leading with his head, not the smartest thing in the world, and now I think it's catching up to him. But for the Bengals, their defensive backfield, Jesse Bates, a rookie safety, he had a really good year as a rookie. You wouldn't know that because of how bad the Bengals defense was. You also had Sam Hubbard on that defensive end. He's been great this year. Also with Michael Johnson's contract coming up, could be really big for Hubbard to step up in a bigger role next year. Geno Atkins, Will Jackson III. I think there's some pieces that Cincinnati has. They need to definitely revamp that linebacking core and that defensive backfield. But I'm still on the fence with Coach Taylor. I don't know how it's going to be. Some of the moves that he's made, and it just seems like he's bringing his buddies in from former jobs. So we'll see how it goes. And hopefully the Bengals can get back to their winning ways. Although I have this bad feeling that Cincinnati's going to take a dip the next couple of years, kind of similar to how the Reds took a dip once Dusty Baker moved on, and the Reds just kind of plummeted there, where it was a playoff team that just couldn't get over the hump. And now you've seen with Cincinnati the last 2 years, they've steady decline and, keeping guys that they probably shouldn't have. I thought Bill Lazor, I didn't think he was that good of an offensive coordinator, but those 2 wins at the end of the year where they knocked out 2 playoff teams, Detroit and Baltimore, they were in Baltimore. And I think that saved his job for a little bit, but the offense wasn't great. And again, this year, I know Andy Dalton getting hurt wasn't the best, and the offensive line, golly, it's not been great. They missed on a couple of draft picks. Definitely need to re-amp the offensive line. Hopefully with the offensive coach, that'll be kind of a marquee move that Coach Taylor will want to do. But like I said, we'll see. Through the thick and thin, always going to be a proud Bengals fan, whether they're disappointing or whether they're up on a high note. The Lakers playoffs? ? They came back down 19 to beat Houston 111-106. Pretty solid win actually for the Lakers. But then again, it's the first game back from All-Star break, so we'll see how the team really connects. LeBron James, 29 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, 7 for 10 from the free throw line. And then Brandon Ingram had a pretty good game, 27 points, 13 rebounds, and 1 assist. Kyle Kuzma also added 18, and then JaVale McGee 11, and new Laker Reggie Bullock 14 points. So we'll see how it goes. I know a lot of the Lakers roster kind of felt it was. I think it was really bad for Los Angeles. All the dirt from the Anthony Davis stuff went public. I think that really kind of soured a lot of relationships between the younger guys and LeBron. So we'll see how they come back from that. For the Rockets, James Harden, 30 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds. Chris Paul, 23 points. Clint Capella added 12, and Eric Gordon also added 14. So for LeBron's sake, I think hopefully they can get back to the playoffs. Didn't think it was going to be this bad. They started out really hot, and then LeBron got the groin injury, and he was out for a while. Then all the stuff with the Pelicans, and it just a really bad storm for LA. They're 29-29 record, 10th seed in the West right now. As I said, for the Lakers' sake, hopefully they can get the 7th seed. Because if they get the 8th seed, I think Golden State, they're just gonna plow through them. I would say Golden State's probably the favorite, or not probably the favorite. They're gonna win a championship for the 3rd year in a row. There's not really anyone on the East. Boston was looking like a pretty prime contender at first, but they've had their issues. We'll have to finish this conversation next week, as I am running out of time here. Done 2 episodes, and so far went way over the time lot. So this has been Scoreboard Talk. I've been your host, Brian Hall, and we'll catch y'all next week.